Hi, and welcome to Adventures with Reid and Tiff. My name's Reid, and today I'm going to talk about what we packed for our hike of the Kumano Kodo Pilgrimage Trail. We did a 3-day modified version of the Nakahechi Main Route in order to hike as much as possible with the time allowed in our vacation. In the description, I'll post a link of a video where we talk about how we planned our 40-kilometer hiking over 3 days. The trail was rewarding but very challenging, and one of the things that we did, which was a success, was to pack as light and efficient as possible. For the Kumano Kodo, there are two ways that you can pack for the trail. You can use the luggage courier system that's available to take your luggage from guest house to guest house each day. That allows you to go on the trail with a day pack that can take water, your lunch, snacks, and then layers like rain gear, which you'll need on the hike. The other option is to bring everything with you, everything that you need from guest house to guest house. There seemed to be sort of an even distribution of doing both. We saw some people that had really large packs, small packs, everything in between. We decided to bring everything with us from one guest house to the next, all the way through the trip. But we tried to pack as minimal and as ultralight as possible in order to maximize our enjoyment. There is a lot of elevation gain and loss on the trail, so anything that we could do to lighten our load was a great help, and I think that we did it quite successfully. In terms of what we brought, each person in our group of 4 brought backpacks that were either similar to this, or in the case of myself and Tiff, we have the exact same backpack. This is a 33-liter pack. It has a hip belt, and the straps are really good at transferring down to your lower body. It carries weight very well, and we've used it on a lot of trips. And I think that that's something that's really important. If you have gear that you're comfortable with, use that. Don't choose any of the gear in this video as the gear to buy, because you should research it. The downside to this pack is that it's a little bit heavier than some of the ultralight versions out there, especially given that it's a small size. And as you can see, it's not completely full. And that's a good thing for a few reasons. One, we still would be putting a lunch, which the lunches were generally of a good size from the guest houses that we got. Also have some snacks in there, and along the way, not that there are many options for it, if we had found something that we wanted to bring with us in terms of a souvenir, it's good to have space in there as well. This pack I actually used for the entire 2 weeks we were in Japan, so I had a few other items that I got rid of before coming on the trail. On the outside of the pack, there are hip pockets on the hip belt. One of them, which is empty right now, was completely filled with snacks each day. On the other side, I have my buff, which I wore most of the time. As soon as I started hiking, my wallet would go into one of the hip belt pockets, and then a small first aid kit. This was for myself and the others in my group, so I carried this. They didn't have to, and it's just a mixture of things like blister care, some antiseptic, and some band-aids. Also on the outside, I have one fold-up water bottle. I really like this one for traveling because it fits well in the pocket in front of you in the airplane, but also when you're not using it, it folds up really small and doesn't take up space. This is 750 milliliters, and then we each brought a 1 liter smart bottle water. I reuse these. It's also good to have because we're putting things like electrolyte powders into our water, so when they did get a little bit gross, you could recycle them and get something new. We switched to Pocari Sweat, which is similar to Gatorade, which helped us on the trip as well. And so at that point, I got rid of this bottle. Also in the bag on the top is some sunglasses. So I brought one of the comfortable polarized pairs that I have, as well as in a case so that it didn't get crushed. And then I have my toiletry bags because there's some painkillers in it, so having it at the top of the bag was useful. And then not necessary for the actual hiking, but I have some wireless earbuds because there's a lot of travel on trains and buses to get to and from the trail. And then inside the bag, underneath of the top, there's another compartment, and that is where I keep the one key for my house that I brought. I left all my other keys at home because I didn't need them when I was in Japan, and then also my passport. Inside the actual main bag, I have just a simple hat that I was wearing most of the time. Japan does have a lot of rain. We were there at the beginning of April, so the gear in here is for spring-like conditions, but also to allow for rain. So I have a small ultralight rain jacket. This one is from Montbell, a Japanese company. It's called the Versalite. It's only about 182 grams, which is quite a bit lighter than a lot of the other rain jackets out there. But if you have a good rain jacket that you trust and that you know, bring that, because it's not worth buying something for the trip if you already have something that you like. However, if you don't have anything, look at the weights of everything and choose accordingly. Also a pair of simple rain pants. And then, because this bag isn't waterproof, if it was going to rain, all of the things that are not waterproof would go into the main compartment, and then I have a pack liner in the main compartment. So inside the pack liner, I have, in a medium size packing cube, I have my miscellaneous items that I'll go through in a second, including electronics. And then I have my clothing bag in a large packing cube. And the reason at the beginning that I said that my pack was supposed to be 10 pounds is that it wasn't 10 pounds because I ended up having to bring my laptop. And the MacBook Pro, although nice and compact for traveling, is quite heavy, so that added another 5.5 pounds, or roughly 2.5 kilograms onto my weight. Without that, it would have been 10 pounds or about 4.5 kilograms. And then the last thing in the bottom of my bag is a down puffy jacket. These are great. I always bring these traveling when we're going to be in cooler conditions because they pack down small, they're lightweight, and they're a lot better for packing than, say, a heavier sweatshirt would be. So I like having that. In my clothing bag, you'll see that there's not a lot in here, and that was intentional. What I'm wearing right now is what I wore most days for hiking, which was just a dry fit t-shirt, some simple hiking pants that I've had for a long time that I really like. And then I do have a belt, but this one is made by Arcade, and it's a very thin profile, so it fits well underneath of the hip belt of a pack. So as for the clothing for when I wasn't on trail, I have two pairs. I have one pair of hiking socks to rotate with the pair that I was wearing when I went to the trail. And then at night times, I had just a very thin, very simple pair of ankle socks to save weight, which would get worn when we were in the guest houses, using the slippers that they provided. For underwear, just choose something that's going to be breathable, quick drying, and also won't lead to any sort of rubbing or chafing. I had the pair that I was wearing to trail, plus I had two others. One was worn for nighttime, and then the other one was rotated for the trail during the day. And then, of course, I had some laundry to do partway through. And then for pants, for the evening, I had just a thin layer of joggers. I probably could have got away with just my hiking pants because I didn't actually get that dirty, but I didn't know. So having an extra pair of pants was good. And these ones are very comfortable, so I actually wore them as my pajamas as well. I had a second t-shirt. This was for the evenings in the guest house. And then because I didn't know how warm or cold the guest houses were going to be kept, I just have a very thin sweatshirt. This I like to wear when it gets a little cool, but when the down puffy jacket is overkill, it's very thin, it's very packable, and I did wear it to sleep a few times in the guest houses. So that is my clothing. The next part is my miscellaneous bag. This is just a medium-sized packing cube. It's not full at all. It's easy to squish in to wherever it needs to go. I have a cork ball. This was recommended by my chiropractor because I get some inflammation in my hips when I do these kind of longer hikes. So I use this to roll out the hip joint each night. It worked very well, but also the great thing about having stays with onsens and public baths is that sitting in those and just letting your muscles recover certainly meant that each morning we were starting out and we weren't sore, which I don't think it was just the ball. I think they had more to do with it than the ball. Also in here is a simple little notebook. I like to do some sketching in it and a pencil, as well as to be able to write down lists or whatnot if needed. Because I had such limited clothing, having some laundry strips was a lightweight way to make sure that if there was the opportunity to laundry, I could. Although later on in the trip, when we did get the opportunity to do laundry, there was laundry detergent available, but you never know. In terms of things that I carried so that Tiff didn't have to carry it, were things that were double up items. Like, for example, our little power bank. Only one of us needed to bring that. It's not something that each person needs. I also bought a different power cube in order to be able to do everything in one. So it's got this is made by Anchor, and it's got a laptop, cell phone, and just a fast charging USB option. So we were able to charge pretty much everything at the same time, which was very handy. It's heavier than it looks, so it didn't save too much weight, but it certainly saved bulk of all of the extra cubes that would be needed, so I think it was worthwhile. But if you have a power adapter for travel that has a bunch of different connections on it, I wouldn't upgrade to that. I just use what you have. Along with that cube, I just brought the necessary cables. So I've got 2 iPhone cables, one with a USB, one with USB-C, so that when we were on trains and things like that, depending on what was available, we could use that. And then my MacBook cable as well, and then a USB-C. And then I had these 2 little adapters between USB and USB-C and USB-C to USB, just in case I needed them, although I don't think I ended up using them on the trip. And then lastly in this bag is a headlamp. This one is the Nightcore NU25. It's an ultralight headlamp. It was recommended everywhere to use a headlamp. We brought that with us, and we fortunately didn't have to use it because we were hiking in the dark. But we did use it one night when we were in a town and we were going to the Combini, and there was just really no lights in that town. So it was helpful to see where we were going as well as for cars to see where we were. But from a safety standpoint, if we were on the trail at night, I would have really wanted this, so I think it's worthwhile to have. But having something that's nice and light is worthwhile. And then the last thing is my toiletry bag. I just use the really small packing cube for that. These are the Osprey ultralight packing cubes. And in here, I had a small travel towel. This is the only towel that I brought with me on the trip, and I didn't even really need it, but having something this size is helpful if needed. Everywhere that needed towels, like onsens and public baths, either they provided them for us or we could rent them. So we didn't bring any big towels. That was something that we noticed in all the YouTube videos we watched ahead of time. Also in the toiletry bag, this is some powdered soap. That was to allow me to do things like laundry in the sinks as necessary. A simple lightweight toothbrush. There will be toothbrushes available and toiletry packs at most hotels or most stays in Japan, although they weren't available at all of the guest houses that we stayed at. So definitely bring one with you just in case, so that you're not in a situation you don't have a toothbrush. I had some simple earplugs. These are great for traveling regardless of what you're doing, but especially when you're staying in rooms with multiple people. An ear picker instead of Q-tips. This cute little one I picked up on the trip that replaced another one that I had. Some dental floss, some eye drops, a little Ziploc baggie with different pain medication mostly, as well as things like anti-diarrhea and that kind of thing. But I make sure that I only put in pills that have the trade name on it, so that if I was ever asked about it, it's very clear that these are Tylenol or Advil or aspirin. But this saves a lot of weight from all of the different little bottles you would need. Also in a Ziploc bag are toothpaste tabs. This is just instead of bringing travel toothpaste with us, you just chew it up and brush with that. So I really like these. Chapstick, some fingernail and toenail clippers. These can definitely come in handy on any sort of hike. If you start getting areas such as toenails that are bothering you, you can clip it and take care of it quickly instead of it festering to something more. And then the last thing, which wasn't needed on this trip, is just a few aqua tabs. These are water treatment tabs, so that way if we ran out of water before getting to another water stop and we needed to fill up with, say, the water in the river, we could just toss a couple of these in, and in 30 minutes we'd have fresh drinking water, or not fresh, safe drinking water. So I usually bring these with me. The things that were not in my pack were the trail runners that I was wearing. These are Hoka Speed Goats. Regardless of what you like to wear in terms of trail runners, I think one of the major part is what kind of tread and what quality they're in. These ones have the Vibram Mega Grip on it, and they stuck to everything. One of the people that was in our group had some really good hiking boots that she's had for years, but the grips have started to lose sort of the stickiness, the rubber's gotten harder, and she struggled a lot with going downhill with the boots and slipping a lot, because a lot of the surfaces are rocks that are wet or mossy, and they are quite slippery. So having a good pair of shoes that will stick to anything is useful. Plus, working them in but not having it in a situation where any of the grip is lost would also be good. These ones I worked out in ahead of going on the trip so that the tread was almost 100%, but they were worked in. The last thing, and this is something that if you have a checked bag, I recommend bringing, is trekking poles. You don't need to if you're not someone that hikes with trekking poles and you're used to doing hiking in mountainous areas, then you definitely don't need to bring trekking poles. However, I love using them. They saved me from falling a couple times. The friend with the hiking boots that was struggling relied heavily on her trekking poles, and it would have been a bad situation if she didn't have them. So I think trekking poles are worthwhile, but these do need to go into a checked bag. They are not safe to go into a carry-on. So that's something to consider when you're packing. Packed everything into a carry-on. However, because Tiff checked a bag, I was able to slip my trekking poles in with her bag. And then last considerations in terms of things that I probably would have done differently. Because there is a lot of travel on the trains to and from, I would have probably just brought my neck pillow with me instead of shipping it along. We took stuff out of our carry-on and put it into a checked bag and shipped it between Osaka and Kyoto. So a couple of those things would have been nice to have, but at the same time, adding in too many of those things would have also added weight. The last thing, because of the time of year in April that we went, it was warm enough to be hiking in a t-shirt. However, there was a lot of wind in certain areas, so I would have subbed out the t-shirt and just used some sort of a long sleeve like sun hoodie or a long sleeve dry fit shirt, as just giving a little bit more protection from the wind. When it did get really windy, we'd put on our rain jackets, but even that, I like having something between the inside of the rain jacket and my skin, so I would have switched out this if I had to do it all over again. The last piece that I would recommend not bringing is a laptop. I had to because I own a small business and we were hiking during the week, and I had a few things that were happening that I needed to be able to answer emails in the evenings and mornings. But I would never bring it unless it was absolutely necessary. That added a lot of weight. That was more than 50% of my pack weight right there. So if you can avoid it or bring a tablet, or better to have nothing, then that's definitely what I would recommend. And then what I talked about in terms of items that were shared between myself and my partner, that's a great way to split up the weight as well. Her pack was roughly a pound lighter than mine because, well, a pound different in terms of the weight without the laptop, because I had things like the charging cube, the wires, the power bank. And so look at how you can sort of split up that weight and also not bring in redundancy. I hope this helped. I hope that this makes your Kumano Kodo trip amazing and successful. And if you like this video, please subscribe and please like, so that I know that I should be making more of these. Thank you.